Welcome to High Drama, to the plays we see anger us, starting with Jane Anger, or the lamentable comedy of Jane Anger, that cunning woman, and also of Willie Shakespeare and his peasant companion Frances, yes, and also of Anne Hathaway, also a woman who tried very hard. Wouldn't you love to have that for a charade puzzle? It was all written by Talene Monahan, who we all know is an actress, and she played Anne Hathaway in this. And this was just so, I loved it, but we'll let Mark get his meanness out first.
Well, I'm not super mean. I like the performers. Talene Monahan's Jane Anger was formerly a whore, and now she's a cunning woman who claims to save people from the disease that is plaguing England in 1606. William Shakespeare is suffering from writer's block at the moment, and his new assistant, Frances, can't help him. Frances, who claims to be 16 but is much older, wants to get the plum ingenue roles from the company. Jane Anger has a past with Shakespeare, and she can sexually unblock him. In exchange, she wants to get him to sign a letter to help her publish her pamphlet against injustice toward women. And much to Shakespeare's distress, his wife, Anne Hathaway, shows up. I thought the premise was intriguing, but much of the humor to me seemed overly silly and labored, and especially toward the end, it just got to be extremely tiresome, and I didn't really like it much at all.
So for you, it was all labor's lost.
But I did like the performers.
Well, things are back to normal. If I were there, I would hit you over the head with a playbill because I strongly disagree with you. I saw this actually. First, I saw this on the computer for pay-per-view, and I thought, oh God, I would love to see this live, and my wish was granted. And to me, this parallel between the plague and the 17th century plague are mine for comic nuggets of gold. You know, what's going on here now. I mean, theaters are shut down, creative people are stymied, women, wives, and servants are not taken seriously, and Shakespeare is so puffed up with his own importance that he feels everyone is there to serve him, but women prove to be smarter than him in the end. Yes! And you know I've never liked Shakespeare that much. And I always love when the piss is taken out of him. And in this case, literally, I love the fact that he is the villain of the play. And Michael Urie is at his best when he's over the top, flaunts about in his cartoonish way, so that the other actors have a chance to shine. Ryan Spawn as his sidekick, and he gets kicked around a lot, is lovable in his overwhelming desire to act. He puts up with a lot of crap to achieve this dream. Amelia Workman's Jane Anger has done and seen it all and thinks that she can make a difference, but once again, men stand in her way. Will she triumph? Her nodding, cynical awareness makes us root for her. And Talene Monahan turns out to be a good writer. She is an actor. She plays a naive, clueless wife very well. We may be laughing at her in the beginning, but by the end, we are incensed by the way Shakespeare treats her. Jane Anger is my favorite type of play, taking a historical event for me to learn about and making it highly entertaining. And now Leonard Feigenblatt has something to say about it too.
Well, I enjoyed it very much, except I can see in Mark's defense that at the end, it got a little much. It really went over and over and over to the top at the end. However, I really loved Michael Urie's Shakespeare and Ryan Spawn Frances, and their scenes between them are just so much fun. So in spite of the fact that at the end it gets a little over the top, I really liked it, and it's a happy face for me.
Happy face for me, and I love over the top, as you well know. I just sit on my hand.
It's mixed faces plus for me, mostly because I like the performers.
I am so excited that this has come back. I loved it the first time I saw it. Mai Yi has come back with Lloyd Suh's The Chinese Lady, which is an unlikely true story of a Fong Moi played by Shannon Taylor. She is a 14-year-old Chinese girl who comes to the United States in 1834 to be exhibited as the Chinese lady in a boxed room filled with Chinese artifacts. The audience would watch her eat with chopsticks, perform a tea ceremony, and walk around in her 4-inch feet with just her irrelevant interpreter, Atong, played by the marvelous Daniel K. Isaacs, for company. She was full of hope to bring a new understanding between the United States and China. And the acting is superb. Daniel K. Isaac as Atong with just a look or grunt or monosyllabic response conveyed more, but he does get a monologue that is just as eloquent as Afong's hopes and desires for China and America. And Shannon Teo as Afong Moy's slow decline from her youthful excitement and love for America fade through the years. It's heartbreaking to watch. And you see her through the years, starting from a 14-year-old till she's like 200. I mean, they keep updating her and stepping back to see what's happened in America, what's happening with her. But it's just brilliantly done, and I just love it. And I especially identify with Atong as it is the invisible ones that have a better chance of survival. The directing is elegant and assured and makes inspired use of the actor's strength. The themes of cultural appropriation, persecution, and colonialism are apparent and contrast against Afong's yearning to understand and be understood. And this gets a major happy face.
Ellen Maddow's Lemon Girls, or Art for the Artless, is a play in which a group of senior citizens come to the rescue of a workshop funded by Art for the Artless. These women, who are now senior citizens, are lemon girls because when they were in elementary school, they went to a progressive lemon elementary school. They've been friends ever since. And one day at their usual coffee shop, they encounter Sid, who's a rather flamboyant gay guy who's into choreography. And he invites them to join his workshop, which is sponsored by Art for the Artless. And it will eventually end up in a performance art-like performance for the public. He gives them a lot of choreography, but they're also—
First they say they're going to agree to it. But then later on, Topo goes to him and says, oh, no, we're not coming. We just don't like to hurt your feelings. But, luckily they changed their mind because they feel so bad for Sid, because without them, he'd have nothing. And they're very kind-hearted people.
Yes. But he gives them choreography, but also allows them to develop their own stuff. And Ellen Maddow's character, Lorca, makes little ditties based on everyday life, including a guy cleaning up after his dog. Penny sort of is worried that maybe people are laughing at her. But
Penny also makes wonderful pithy comments like, I've noticed more often than not, there is a meaning under the meaning.
And the trouble is they need to get an extra performer, and otherwise the funding will dry up. So they promise that their friend Fran will join them, but mysteriously she's never able to show up. I love the way Talking Band concentrates on friendship developed over years and the unexpected things that could happen in an urban environment that really change people's lives. I love this show, and I always love Talking Band.
Oh, me too. I just find their shows to be enchanting. And we have to mention also Nivea. She's very pleased with herself because she picks up the dance steps quicker than the others. And Sid is just he's so sweet, and he's so dedicated and focused on what he wants. And I just wonder, will he be able to keep the workshop together? Will the ladies be able to put on a show that won't embarrass them? Does it really matter if they are having fun? It's just what's sheer delight to be in Sid and the Lemon Girls company. I'm telling you, Ellen Maddow, Paul Zamet, and Tina Shepard are a great team in creating a Talking Band show, and it's so good to be back seeing them in person again with the rest of the ensemble. And this gets a happy face from me too.
Absolutely, we agreed on this one.
Absolutely. At Manhattan Theater Club, Joshua Harmon's Prayer for the French Republic focuses on a French Jewish family that has lived in France for generations, maintaining a piano store, selling and making their own Salomon piano, and doing very well for themselves until World War II. Molly from America, a distant cousin, is visiting her relatives, Marcel and Charles, and their children who are her age, Daniel and Elodie, while she is studying at a nearby school. The world is in a precarious state in 2016 with the horrifying election of Trump and the possible election of another right-wing nut in France. Things are not looking too good for Jews in France again. Daniel, to his mom's horror, goes out in public with a yarmulke on his head, which makes him a target for all the rabid anti-Semitism abounding. Their family isn't even that religious, but an old girlfriend had turned the susceptible Daniel to become more Orthodox. Marcel and her brother Pierre are concerned that their old father won't leave the piano store, and even though there was no business anymore, he clings to it. Charles is tempted to give up their now thriving careers to move to the safer Israel, which would please Daniel no end. Elodie, who suffers from depression, couldn't care less and just wants to sleep. Molly is filled with misinformation and is pro-Palestinian, thinking of the Israelis as the aggressors occupying Palestine. All this makes for some lively conversation. Interspersed with their present day times, we are confronted with their family from the past during World War II. Adolf and Irma miraculously are left alone to wait news of their son Lucien, who returns with Pierre. We saw the profound effect that anti-Semitism has on both time periods. The question is always, does one stay or go before it gets too dangerous to be a Jew? And with what's going on in Ukrainian right now, oh my God, it's like jeepers.
This is such a good play. I just love Joshua Harmon. I think he writes really intelligent, thoughtful, well-written plays from his point of view. And I just love the performances. I think the entire cast is really wonderful, but I especially love Betsy Adam. I just think she is the center and the emotional core of this play. And she is such a natural that you kind of almost forget you're watching Betsy Adam, and she just, just becomes the character. And I just wanted to say how nice it was to see Pierre Epstein on stage again.
And also to see Peyton Left, we saw him as a bar mitzvah boy when he was like 12, and now he's like 16, and he's completely different, but he's still a good actor.
And looks quite different than the little boy we saw at the York Theater as the bar mitzvah boy.
And also, it doesn't matter how religious you are, or even if you don't even consider yourself a Jew, because the mom was Catholic, it's all about survival through the generations. And is there anywhere a Jew can go and really be safe? And, as a first generation American, this really hit home with me. And I was also struck by the fact that all of us in our services, because, I go to temple religiously, but there is a prayer for the country. We have a prayer for the American country, obviously. I wouldn't say it while Trump was president. I just couldn't say it. And I noticed they have one for Netherlands, they have one in France, they have one in England. It just doesn't matter. But every country does have a prayer in services. Anyway, I'm giving this a major happy face.
Me too.
In Peter Jill Sheridan's The Space Between Us, when Jamie decides to quit his corporate job in Manhattan to take a do-gooder job in Nairobi, Kenya, helping people in Eritrea, it causes quite a commotion among his friends and family. His HIV positive vegan boyfriend, Ted, wants him to stay home and get married. His Cuban-born Republican father, Frank, wishes that the son would be less selfless and take care of his own interests. His party girlfriend, Jillian, wants him to be hedonistic and indulgent with her. His mother sort of fears for his safety. Only his aunt, Sister Pat, who's a Catholic nun, is supportive of his mission. I enjoyed this sort of. I liked the characters' banter, but none of this rang true to me. None of the characters were believable. So it's another play where, the acting is what made it tolerable, because the play itself, I really couldn't buy. But maybe Eva felt a little bit better toward it.
Actually, we're in agreement again. We've only had one disagreement this show. No. But first, I would like to say how wonderful it was to have Keen Company back at Theater Row. Watching them online kept us going to a certain extent and gave us hope that they will be back. And they were, unlike some others that sadly didn't make it. And, you know, the play did have an intriguing premise, and family dynamics always make good conflict. And the acting was quite believable, but their actions and words weren't. And Jillian's character was just talk about you're over the top.
Yeah.
Oh, and Frenzied, I just found her annoying. And before we met Ted, I got a bad impression of him because he seemed to have such a sway over Jamie, turning him into a vegan and subjugating him into his way of thinking and acting, which got turned around in the course of the play. And Frank, Jamie's father, seemed supportive of his gay son, but tried to turn him into a macho wrestling horse betting guy like himself. And the mom, Debbie, was more interested in besting her sister, Pat, and Pat had her own agenda under the guise of understanding none. And all the characters were needy in their own way, while Jamie, in helping the needy, became needy himself. There were odd moments when the action stopped, possibly to give Jamie time to contemplate the moment. This was a well-meaning play that didn't have much meaning for me, but other people might like it more, so don't put space between the play and going, and check it out for yourself, but it just gets a mixed face plus from me as well. I'm sorry, because I love Keen Company.
Yeah, it gets a mixed face for me, and I wouldn't recommend that people rush out to see it.
See Julian Jimenez's Bruise and Thorn is about looking out for each other, having big dreams, and trying to survive on the mean streets of Jamaica, New York. Thorne wants to be a rapper and win America's Got Talent. She or he's hooked up with the toxic lizard. Thorne lives with Bruise, who looks out for him. They work in this rickety laundromat run by the controlling Mrs. Gallo, who has them by the short hairs as she gives them low wages and at least a place that's rent-free. Bruise is a softie and lets old fart, played by Lou Liberatore, whom I just adore, which is why I went to see this play. He's a homeless man who hangs out in the laundromat as long as Mrs. Gallo isn't there. And Bruce has dreams of his own that nobody seems to care about, as it seems that everything revolves around Thorne, and she's such an unsympathetic character. And I'm sorry, but I'm very confused by her pronouns, because 1 minute she is a boy, and 1 minute when she's with Lizard, she's a boy, but when she's not, she is definitely a girl and gets really mad if you call her a he. And so it's not a they situation. So at one moment she's a she, and 1 moment she's a he. So I just, and I just didn't, the acting was fabulous because he made me just dislike her so much I couldn't care less about her. And the other actors were so wonderful that I really was rooting for them. And there was, a cow living in Jamaica, New York, and sheep and chicken running around. I don't know. There were certain elements like, really? But I just want to say that even though I had trouble with it, but Noah Miller thought it was a clever way of showing two marginalized young people chasing their dreams, amazing use of dream fantasy sequences, and he will never look at chicken the same way again. So he gives it a happy face, because I always try to put something positive there, but to me, Bruise and Thorn will leave you prickly and battered, and I gave it a mixed face.
High Drama saw a number of one-night-only special events at Carnegie Hall, and on March 10th, Master Voice presented Anyone Can Whistle, which has music and lyrics by Stephen Sondheim and a book by Arthur Lawrence. It premiered on Broadway at the Majestic Theater on April 4th, 1964, and closed just 9 days later. And that was primarily due to the absolute incoherent book by Arthur Lawrence. It has never been revived, but it has had several notable concerts, the latest of which was with Master Voices. And it's really the way to go if you want to present Anyone Can Whistle, because the chorus and the orchestra are both so amazing. The orchestra, of course, conducted by Ted Sperling, who's the conductor and the director of Master Voices. And this version had Vanessa Williams, who looked great and sounded great. She played Cora Hooper. But Stanley was amazing, and Tony Award winner Santino Fontana. He got to do the show-stopping Sondheim number, Everybody Says Don't, which he did amazingly, and it had wonderful support from Eddie Cooper, Michael Mulheron, and Douglas Sills.
Vanessa Williams plays the mayor of this town that is not doing very well, and she's very, very corrupt. And so are her ministers like Douglas Sills and everyone. And they come up with a plan to have a miracle to get, and all that they have in this place is an insane asylum filled with, they call the inmates cookies. And so they stage a miracle to show water appearing out of a rock. And then somehow the cookies get mixed up with the townspeople, and they want to put the cookies back in their place. But the nurse, played by Elizabeth Stanley, won't tell them which are townspeople and which are cookies. And then Santino Fontana comes to town and turns them into Group A and Group B. It's sort of like the Democrats and Republicans going at each other's throats. And anyway, everyone's just looking for a miracle. Everyone's looking to stay sane. Everyone's looking to survive. Everyone's looking, well, one place you're not.
I rest my case. I rest my case. You've just made my case. It is an absolutely incoherent book. I don't know if anyone can see it, can get as much out of it as you did. It is so convoluted and incoherent.
Damn it, I'm going to give it a happy face because, hell, it's Sondheim and Master Voices, and they just deserve a happy face.
I'm right there with you for the same reason.
And recently, Sonia and I saw Norm Lewis at Carnegie Hall, and the review is on the Facebook page. And I got to tell you, Norm Lewis's voice was meant to be at Carnegie Hall. I mean, his voice is beyond gorgeous. Let's face it. There's nothing better than his voice. So again, if you ever get a chance to go to Carnegie Hall to see whatever they're doing, they always put on such a wonderful show, whether it's just the orchestra itself. I mean, they opened with the Pinball Wizard from Tommy. And it was just, it practically got a standing ovation, that alone. I mean, they're wonderful. So yeah, I love Carnegie Hall. Happy face. And now for even more exciting news, here's our very own Jay Michaels with his Indie Influencer. Take it away, Jay.
This is Jay Michaels, and I'm your Indie Influencer here on television's High Drama. Lee Jin served a prison sentence for his participation in the 1989 Tiananmen Square protests and continued to advocate publicly for those in need after that. The last official act for this courageous immigration lawyer was to serve as a producer and keynote speaker at Tiananmen Requiem at the Players Theater. I say last official act, as recently he was stabbed to death in his office. Considering his involvement with Tiananmen Massacre, one could not say that his untimely death was the result of his contribution to the play, but you also can't disregard it as well. As we begin to get back to normal, Off-Broadway is looking very different. Productions have much more to say, and so do those involved. I think the normal we're returning to is the independent movement of Off-Broadway from the 1950s through the 1980s. Right now in rehearsal, Anthony Laura's play, The Girl with the Red Hair, and Arnie Roman's stunning new musical, Surviving the Rosenthals, deal very deeply and in fascinating ways with the afflictions of the mind. Katha Gentis is taking her keen observations of the sexuality of Gens X, Y, and Z to a new level with sex work, sex play. Joe Moe, Sarah Elizabeth Brown, Erin Shea Brady, and a host of other brilliant playwrights are taking the LGBTQ experience to a new level at this year's exciting Fresh Fruit Festival. Roland Jewett follows in the footsteps of Rod Serling by handing us dark fantastical tales with a powerful message, as we see in his upcoming play, Saki Tells All, regarding a little boy, a sock puppet, an abusive family, and a corrupt institution. And not since August Wilson has there been a better translator to the stage of the African-American experience than Michael Hagan's, who has 2 plays in preparation currently, A Shot Rang Out and the encore of Sun in the USA. It seems the off-Broadway movement is back and angry as hell. The indie artist movement is not opening the windows and screaming, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. They're raising the curtain. See the plays, join the fight. This is Jay Michaels, and I'm your indie influencer here on television's High Drama.
And I was so privileged to go to the Rattlestick Theater's benefit that they put on. Tom Kirdahi's production, Terrence McNally's Unusual Acts of Devotion, and it had Nikki M. James, Lois Smith, Brooks Ashman Kass, Ariane Moyed, Rosie Perez, and Michael Urey, who read the directions. And it was directed by Zachary Quinto. It's about these neighbors on a hot July day having a party on the roof, and there's a mysterious man running around murdering people. And it's all about the various relationships between the neighbors, lots of sexual tension going on. And it's Terrence McNally. Any excuse to bring Terrence McNally back to life again always warms the cockles of my heart. And 92nd Street Y, I got to have a little sneak peek at Harmony that's coming up. They had Bruce Sussman and Barry Manilow there. It was fun to see the numbers. It looks like it's going to be really good. And it's going on starting March 23rd down at the Museum of Jewish Heritage at Battery Place, and it's put on by the Folkspina. So we'll be seeing it and talking about it, but definitely this is going to be the hottest ticket to see. So really important to go to the Facebook to look at the list of all the shows. I mean, I usually have like 20, 30 plays on there for you to, see what's going on. And our next show, April 9th, we'll have even more to talk about, I'm sure.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for coming.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye, Mark.
Bye-bye.